All right, well, welcome to today's episode of Security Jeopardy. Today's contestants, to my left, the first one is Lloyd Indig, who is currently the Information Security and Privacy Officer at the Department of Social Services. A little known fact about Lloyd is that he moonlights as a tooth fairy to the Northern California region, a fact you might not want to share with your children. They may be expecting a smaller winged fairy type with a tutu, which is not quite his style. Our next contestant is the beautiful Denise Mellor, who is currently the Agency Information Security Officer for both the California Government Operations Agency and the Business Consumer Services Housing Agency, and the Chief Information Security Officer for the California Franchise Tax Board, aka the Security Goddess. Just as she wears many hats today, in her previous life, Denise was a beauty contestant winning a 4th place crown for the state of Kansas. Her special talent was showcasing her baton twirling skills, not to mention that she was a body double for the James Bond movie franchise females. Denise. Last to join our illustrious panel of contestants is the charming Tim Garza. Tim is currently the Chief Information Officer for the Department of Water Resources. What you might not know about Tim is that he enjoys competing as a synchronized swimmer for the Sacramento Sinkers. It is truly a special show to watch. Our host today is Vaishali Patel, the absolutely stunning and lovely Regional Sales Manager for Imperva. Before her security and game show career, she was often found performing her musical talents on the streets of San Francisco. You might have seen her. Anyway, welcome them to the stage today.
Thank you, everyone, for attending our session, and I was told to remind everyone to fill out the surveys before you leave. So here are today's categories. We have life, death, taxes, and breaches.
Taxes.
Data classification. What is your risk? How to get rid of your auditor. Who are you entertaining in your cloud? And Hollywood hacking. All right, so we're going to start with Denise.
So, Vaishali, I think I would like life, death, taxes, and breaches for 100.
Great choice. All right, 22.1 million.
22.1 million. What's the number of records hacked during the OPM breach?
Correct.
Yes.
Tim.
How about data classification for 300?
Excellent choice. According to the IDC, less than 5% of the $27 billion spent on security products directly address data center security.
What is, in my mind, not enough money spent on protecting critical systems and information, which we call the crown jewels within the data center?
Correct. Anything else you'd like to add?
Sure. I'd like to elaborate that I think the lack of money being spent on the data center is really a big risk. At the Natural Resource Agency, which I'm the IT director, we have 33 departments that run out of the data center. They have critical systems and information. And if you don't protect the data center, think about the risk. That's where all your secure corporate information is. Not only if somebody gets deep into your data center, basically, not only do they own you, they could own your stakeholders and your constituents. So it's very important that you protect the data center information systems, both physical security and information systems security.
Thank you, Tim. Lloyd.
My favorite subject, how do you get rid of your auditors? And I'm going to go for 500, please.
I'm taking notes on this one.
All right, number one, is the audit process independent from the database system being audited? 2, does the audit trail establish user accountability? 3, does the audit trail include appropriate detail? 4, does the audit trail identify material variances from baseline activity? And 5, is the scope of the audit trail sufficient?
These are some of the questions auditors like to ask but never answer.
Correct. Anything else you'd like to add there?
Yeah, and for us at the Department of Social Services, audit is always in the back of my mind. We have not only internal, where the state may or may not audit, OTEC office, state bureau audits. We're also subject to federal reviews by the Social Security Administration because we receive data directly from them, and they can perform their reviews and/or audits at any time. We also are subject to the IRS, which is on a 3-year cycle, and an annual compliance report. So we have to be prepared at any time for an audit. And best practices, you don't want to be prepared just because you think you're getting an audit. An audit is just to check on your controls and then check on your processes that should be in place with all your various tools and technologies. You shouldn't look at it as, oh, they're coming around the corner, so get your act together. Your act should be together just in case they do come.
Thanks, Lloyd. Denise?
Let's see, Vaishali, I think I'd like to do, what is your risk for 300?
Okay. 1, excessive and unused privileges. 2, privilege abuse. 3, input injection. 4, malware. 5, weak audit trail. 6, storage media exposure. 7, exploitation of vulnerabilities and misconfigured databases. 8, unmanaged sensitive data. 9, denial of service. 10, limited security expertise and education.
Wow. Where's that Watson when you need him? What are the top 10 most critical database threats in 2015?
Correct. And do you have anything to elaborate there in terms of how you're dealing with some of these with Franchise Tax Board or any of the other agencies and hats that you wear?
Yes, so I just did a session talking about risk management, and there are formal risk management processes that we're required to go through, and I'm not suggesting that anyone not go through those, but in addition to the formal risk management processes that we go through, and we either decide to accept risk, mitigate risk, get rid of it, whatever the case may be, my staff and I, every time there's a breach, we sit down, we collect all the information that we can about that breach, and then we say, okay, given what we know about that breach, do we need to do anything different? Is our risk assessment that we did, globally, formally, does anything in this change? And several years ago, when the South Carolina Department of Revenue had a breach, when we sat down, we recognized that one of our controls that was really more manual than automated, we could no longer live with based on what had happened to the state of South Carolina. And they're a small state. California's a very large state, and when you look at what that breach has ultimately cost them, while I would never wish that on anyone, it was a bonus. They did us a favor because they gave us all the data to use to support a more formal database logging project. And so we are in the implementation stage of implementing a formal database logging tool to help us resolve that gap that we identified from doing a risk assessment around an event that happened. So I want to talk about that a little bit. We are, and I'm talking about I call it my day job, the Franchise Tax Board job. We are a large organization with a lot of databases, and it's sometimes overwhelming, all of the information that we have. But it is critical that you understand where all of your data is and where those crown jewels are, like Tim was saying. If you don't, you spend your time protecting something that's not very valuable, and you're leaving the really valuable thing unprotected. So you really have to do your homework and understand where all of those data elements go. And Lloyd, we dread the IRS coming out. But one of the things that they do and that they require that we do is they require that we track all of their data everywhere it goes through our systems. You know what that gives us? it gives us a lot of information about where our data is going too, because where their data goes, much of ours goes with it, and where it's stored, and so on and so forth. So the fact that we have to do that for them, we've now better leveraged in our state processes so that we know what we have to protect, where it is, and how we protect it. Because gone are the days where you protect everything at this level, right? It used to be cheaper to protect everything at one level. That's not true anymore. And as data continues, that we collect continues to grow, it's just going to get worse.
Thank you, Denise. Tim?
Women fashion for 1,000.
That's for later on, Tim. Back to security.
Okay. How about life, death, and taxes for 200?
Approximately $200.
What is the approximate cost of per record when you get breached?
Correct. Lloyd?
I'm going to try data classification for 200.
Blank data is in both known and unknown places throughout your environment.
What is sensitive and unmanaged data?
Correct. You don't have any of that, do you, Lloyd?
No, we have none of that, but to elaborate, Denise said, yeah, we have the FTI data. We also have Social Security data. We have recipient aid data. I'm dealing with county data, 58 counties that some of them are larger than the state of South Carolina. Where is all the data? What's the classification? Because there are different rules. If SSA provides and verifies, it follows a different set of rules than if a recipient provides the information. So therefore, you may say, oh, it's a Social Security number, it's all the same, but it's not, because there's different regulatory and statutes of how I have to classify and hence treat that data. So tools and technologies such as Imperva can assist and help. But it's so important because you can't protect everything. You have to do, as we talked in the last session, a risk assessment. You have to understand your data. Where is the data? Is it in TMS? Is it in OTEC? Is it, unfortunately, on someone's C drive? It happens. It's a fact of life. So it's really key. And as you know, the new ISO in the department, just grasping a hold of that is a huge challenge, but it has to be taken very seriously.
Thank you. Denise?
Let's see, I think I'm going to go for some big money and do how to get rid of your auditors for 400.
All right. Auditors look at multiple aspects of a database environment, including user management, authentication, separation of duties, access control, and audit trail.
How about, how do auditors verify regulatory compliance?
Correct. Do you have anything about that?
Yeah, a little bit, maybe.
Okay.
So I did talk a little bit a few minutes ago about how we've leveraged something that's really labor intensive, 3 weeks spent with the IRS auditors, into being a tool for us in our organization, because we've now leveraged some of those safeguard processes. So I guess my message would be, don't be afraid of audits. Figure out how you can use them to your benefit. Will that help you meet some other requirement? Will that help you identify a gap that will improve your security posture with your executive management team? You know, are you going to get basically some free resources to do some poking around that you maybe don't have the resources to do? So embrace the auditors. They're going to come whether you want them to or not, right? And then understand how you can benefit from that. Understand what tools you have available to you that will help you meet those requirements. That database logging tool that I mentioned is actually helping us fulfill a gap that was identified in an IRS audit. But it came after we had decided we needed it, but they still got us in the audit. So.
And if I could just add on done, even if your findings are not in compliant or partially compliant, use it as a learning opportunity. If you have a remediation plan and you have a go-forward plan, that's important, but it helps educate. Don't look at it as, oh my God, we've just been dinged and we're dead. You're not. It's a learning opportunity to improve. So as frightful as some audit results are, turn it into a positive because it helps educate senior management and the entire department and even the state of how you can move forward.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Tim?
Starlets for 500. No starlets?
No.
Man, they lied to me when they put me on this show. How about who is basically entertaining in your cloud? Is that it?
For 500?
No, for 500.
Daily double. Wow. All right, during the security discovery of SaaS or cloud-based applications, typically around blank SaaS apps are found.
What is over 100?
Correct.
So that's an actual number. We recently, one of the things that as a CIO and IT director that scares the H out of me was basically that we didn't have eyes going out. We spent so much security protecting what's internal and what people are doing basically in our data center, who is accessing our data center information, what are people doing from the endpoints. But in today's world, when we talk about SaaS, you talk about cloud, you talk about people, the consumerization of IT, that changes the ballgame. And because of the consumerization, people come in and they expect to have things like Dropbox and stuff available to these. And these are things like executive and senior management and transaction staff really drive this thing. So one of the things that in order to allow that innovation and still reduce your business cost, you have to allow those things. But in our mind, you have to sanction them or non-sanction them. So without eyes, we really couldn't do that. So we really undertook a POC with a product, and we've just implemented it called Skyfence. I don't know who owns that product, but
Imperva.
but basically, what it allowed us to do is have eyes going outward, seeing where our people were, what they were using in the cloud, what free services, what other services, where they potentially were moving some of our corporate data. Now, no intent. They weren't trying to do this from any malicious reasons. They were just trying to get their jobs done and so forth. A lot of this was because they were trying to collaborate with people like the U.S. government that says, okay, let's just use Drop Drive. We'll put this out there. But without eyes on it, we weren't able to properly govern it. So the idea was to be able to see it, and now we're able to put policies around it, and we're able to kind of basically drive them to the right type of cloud solution that is still governed and protects our data. So it's really important that you know how your folks are using things like SaaS and cloud. And then you put policies around that. We actually are implementing runtime policies. So for instance, as we look at moving to Office 365G, each user gets a one data of OneDrive, right? Of OneDrive. How are you going to govern that? How are you going to let them put certain things out there but not certain things? So those are the things that policy-driven cloud software can help you do. And that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Tim. And Lloyd.
Since lunch for 1,000 is not up there, I'll go with the next most exciting thing, life, death, taxes, and breaches for 300.
Okay. A loosely associated international network of activists and hacktivist entities.
Who's anonymous?
Correct. So now we're going to have a little fun with the audience. We actually have an audience session. So our last category there is called Hollywood hacking. I'm just going to start down the row. This is for you guys. If you know the answer, raise your hand. And Mark's going to, we actually have a little thank you gift too. So I just click something. Hollywood hacking for 100. This movie was released directly to streaming movie services because Hollywood was allegedly hacked by North Korea. The North Korean government threatened action against the United States if Sony Entertainment released this film. Do you know who? Okay.
What is the interview?
Correct. since I'm still reading, Mark, you can let me know who raised their hand first.
All right, I'll watch.
All right. Hollywood Hacking for 200. This movie had their own studio hack and deface the movie website to further promote their movie.
Sonic Pictures.
So they're all movies.
What? This movie? The interview.
No. That was the first one.
Did you know what it was? You were the next person. No.
This movie has their own studio hack and deface the movie
So
website.
it's an older movie. It's, these movies can be anywhere from the early 80s to present.
I know this one. The Hacker? What is The Hacker?
Very close.
Ah.
Come on.
Oh, back there.
No.
Does it have Angelina in it?
Huh? Nope.
What is Ghostbusters?
Hackers.
Hackers. Oh man, that's semantics.
All right, Hollywood Hacking for 300. This movie used modem war dialing to find a supercomputer that almost caused a thermonuclear war.
Very good.
That guy looks too young to know that movie. Man. Oh, he looks like too young to know that movie.
Mark helped me with these categories. Hollywood Hacking for 400. This 3D grid character used NMAP to scan a power plant, then used SSH
The guy in the
nuke
back.
to exploit an SSH vulnerability to gain root access.
So I think you're first, and then. Okay. Which Trinity? And which movie? The Matrix. Matrix Reloaded. Very good.
All right, Hollywood Hacking for 500. This movie sported a covenanted red stapler and had their disgruntled employees upload a virus to the banking software system to skim the fractions of cents into a bank account, like in Superman 3.
Very good.
All right.
Awesome.
So do you guys have any other questions for Tim, Denise, or Lloyd?
You guys just want to go to lunch, huh?
Well, we started late, but we're done. So please fill out your surveys, and then if you guys have any questions, just let me know. Thank you.